The fire roars high, a wooden giant crackles in the flames, and inside, human shadows twist and scream. This is not a nightmare, it's the ritual of the Celt. Welcome to the darker side of Celtic world, where words could kill. Gods demanded blood, and every fire lit was a bargain with forces far beyond human control. What kind of gods demanded such sacrifices, and why did druids believe that words, not swords, could kill? Today we descend into the darkness of Celtic belief, blood sacrifices, deadly curses, gods that demanded fear, and the festivals that opened the gates to the Otherworld. Watch until the end, because some doors to the Otherworld should never be opened. Among the most terrifying stories told about the Druids is that of the Wicker Man. Roman writers describe a towering figure of wood and wicker built in the shape of a man. Its hollow chest and limbs were filled, not with straw, but with living prisoners. When the time came, the structure was set alight. Flames roared, smoke filled the night sky, and inside the wooden giant, human voices screamed until they were silenced by fire. The Wicker Man may not have stood on every hill, but the idea of fire as offering was very real. It was not mindless cruelty, it was an exchange. To the Celts, life itself could be bargained. Human lives fed the gods, and in return, the tribe hoped for protection, fertility, and survival. And here lies the true horror. The victims weren't always prisoners. Some reports suggest that when times were desperate, or the gods seemed silent, volunteers stepped inside the wicker giant, offering themselves as a final, sacred gift. Imagine it, the fire crackling, the night alive with chants, a colossal figure burning against the sky, a whole community watching, believing that within the flames their prayers might finally be heard. For centuries, many believed this was nothing more than Roman propaganda, exaggerations meant to paint the Celts as savages. But archaeology began to whisper a different story. Burnt remains of human bones found in ritual pits, evidence of sacrifice tied to harvests, war, and plague. The Lindow Man was found in the peat bogs of England. His body was eerily preserved. He bore the marks of what scholars call the triple death, strangled with a cord, struck on the skull, and his throat cut. In his stomach, mistletoe berries, sacred to the Druids. Coincidence? Or the undeniable mark of ritual sacrifice? Animals too carried the weight of offerings. Bulls and horses were slaughtered, their hides used for divination. Druids would sleep upon the warm skins, seeking visions. At Beltane, cattle were driven through smoke to cleanse them and shield the tribe from evil. Every sacrifice was a bargain, a transaction written in blood. Not all sacrifices spilled blood. Some were made of breath and sound. The filid, poets and seers, commanded power equal to druids. Their praise could immortalize, but their satire could destroy. A curse spoken by a filid was feared as much as a spear. Let's take a look at the curse of King Bres. Bres, half a Morrigan, ruled Ireland with greed. He neglected hospitality, a sacred duty, starving his people while he hoarded wealth. The bard Bres stood before him and unleashed a satirical poem so venomous it spread like fire. Bres's power collapsed. No army defeated him, only codes. For the Celts, language itself was sorcery. If words this powerful fascinate you, make sure to subscribe, because the next legend is even darker. The gods of the Celts were not distant figures. They walked in forests, whispered in rivers, and bled on battlefields. The Morrigan, the Phantom Queen, appeared as a crow, circling warriors fated to die. When Cuchulainn, Ireland's greatest hero, fought his last battle, it was the Morrigan who came to him disguised, first as a maiden, then as an eel, then as a wolf. She promised him victory if he yielded to her, but he refused. For defiance, she ensured his death. She was not only goddess of war, she was the weaver of destiny. On stormy nights, the Celts spoke of phantom riders racing across the skies, led by Gwyn ap Nudd. The sound of hooves thundered above, and to be caught outside was to risk body and soul. This is the wild hunt. Some believed the hunt stole the living, dragging them into the otherworld. To hear the hunt was to know you were marked. The Celts divided their year with fire, each festival a crack in the veil between worlds. Samhain. The night when the dead walked among the living. Fires were extinguished, then relit from sacred flames. Families left food for wandering souls. Masks were worn not for fun, but to confuse spirits hunting for the living. One legend says the monstrous Fomorians once demanded tribute each Samhain, cattle, crops, even children, until heroes rose to break their hold. But fear of that night remained forever. Beltane, a festival of fire and fertility. Bonfires burned on hilltops, cattle were driven through the smoke, and couples leaped across flames for luck. Yet some whispered that lives, human lives, were also given to ensure survival for another year. Imbolc, dedicated to Brigid, goddess of fire and poetry. Her flame was carried from home to home, blessing families. But her fire was not gentle. It was purification, a spark that renewed life after the long dark. Lughnasadh, a festival of harvest and trial marriages. Couples bound themselves for a year and a day, their fates tied to the fertility of the land. If crops failed, vows were broken, and the gods displeased. If they thrived, the pact was sealed. Every festival was not just celebration. It was negotiation with the unseen. In Ireland lies a cave called Oweynagat, the Cave of Cats, known as a gateway to the Otherworld. It was here, according to legend, that monstrous creatures emerged during Samhain, beasts with flaming eyes, spectral birds, and even armies of demons. The cave was said to be the home of the Morrigan herself, where she raised her forces of darkness. Farmers feared the night when the cave would open, unleashing terrors that roamed the land. For the Celts, this was no simple story. Oweynagat was a reminder. The boundary between our world and the otherworld was fragile, and every year it thinned. What came through could not always be controlled. The Celts lived in constant negotiation with powers greater than themselves. Blood on the soil, words that killed, gods that walked unseen, and festivals that tore open the veil. Perhaps their rituals ended long ago, but in a flicker of fire, a whisper of wind, or the dark mouth of a cave, you might still feel the echo. And some gates, once opened, refused to close.